The biting cold seeps through my bones as I shuffle towards the front door, my arthritic hands trembling. Who could be knocking at this ungodly hour, in the middle of a raging blizzard? I crack open the door, and my heart shatters. There, shivering on my doorstep, is Theo, my precious grandson. His tear-stained face is pale, his lips tinged blue. "Grandma," he whimpers, "I'm so cold and hungry." I usher him inside, my mind reeling. "Theo, sweetheart, what are you doing here? Where are your parents?" He looks up at me, his eyes filled with a pain no child should know. They told me to wait in the car, but it was so cold, Grandma. I waited for hours, but they never came back. Anger boils in my veins, but I push it down. Right now, Theo needs me. I wrap him in a warm embrace, feeling his small body tremble against mine. "It's okay, darling, you're safe now. Let's get you warmed up and fed." As I prepare a steaming bowl of chicken soup, Theo sits at the kitchen table, his thin shoulders hunched. The sight breaks my heart. How could Marla and Jonah do this to their own child? "Here you go, sweetheart. Eat up." I place the bowl in front of him, and he devours it like he hasn't eaten in days. Perhaps he hasn't. "Grandma," he says between spoonfuls, "I don't want to go back. They forget about me. I'm always alone." Tears sting my eyes, but I blink them away. I need to be strong for Theo. "You don't have to go back, darling. You can stay with me as long as you need." As I tuck Theo into bed that night, his small hand clutches mine. "I love you, Grandma," he whispers, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. "I love you too, Theo. More than anything." Long after he drifts off to sleep, I sit in the darkness, my mind churning. How could I have let this happen? I knew Marla and Jonah were irresponsible, but this is unforgivable. I think back to when Marla was growing up, how I poured my heart and soul into raising her. But somewhere along the way, she changed. She became distant, entitled. She met Jonah, and things only got worse. They'd show up at my door, demanding money, claiming they were struggling. But I saw through their lies. Designer clothes, fancy cars, lavish vacations. They were living the high life while their son suffered. I tried to reason with them, to make them see the error of their ways. But they brushed me off, mocking my concerns. "You're just a bitter old woman," Marla sneered. "You don't understand our lives." But I understand all too well. I've seen the pain in Theo's eyes, the longing for love and attention, and I'll be damned if I let it continue. As the blizzard rages on outside, I make a silent vow. I will protect Theo, no matter the cost. I will give him the love and stability he deserves, and I will make Marla and Jonah pay for their neglect. They may have forgotten their responsibilities, but I will not forget this injustice. The storm inside me is just beginning, and I will not rest until Theo is safe and his parents face the consequences of their actions. I wake up to the sound of Theo's soft snores, his small body curled up beside me. The events of last night flood back, and I feel a fresh wave of anger wash over me. How could Marla, my own daughter, neglect her child like this? As I make breakfast, my mind drifts to the past. I remember the day Marla was born, the joy and love that filled my heart. I devoted my life to raising her, sacrificing my own dreams to ensure she had every opportunity. But as she grew older, something changed. She became distant, always demanding more. More money, more attention, more freedom. I tried to guide her, to teach her the value of hard work and responsibility, but she pushed me away. "You're suffocating me," she'd scream. "I'm an adult now. I don't need you telling me what to do." When she met Jonah, I had hoped he would be a stabilizing force in her life, but he was just as reckless and irresponsible as she was. They'd come to me, begging for money, spinning tales of hardship and struggle. At first, I believed them. I gave them what I could, even when it meant sacrificing my own comfort. But then I started to notice the signs, the expensive clothes, the flashy gadgets, the constant partying. I confronted them, my voice shaking with anger and disappointment. "How can you live like this?" I asked. "What about Theo? What about your responsibilities?" Marla laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Responsibilities? We're young, Mom. We deserve to have fun. Theo's fine. He's got a roof over his head and food in his belly. What more does he need?" I was stunned, my heart breaking at her callous words. "He needs love, Marla. He needs his parents." Jonah stepped forward, his face twisted in a sneer. "Love doesn't pay the bills, old woman. We're doing the best we can. If you're so concerned, why don't you take him?" I opened my mouth to respond, but they were already walking away, their laughter echoing in the air. That was the last time I saw them, until last night when Theo showed up at my door, shivering and alone. A small hand tugs at my sleeve, pulling me from my thoughts. "Grandma, I'm hungry." I smile down at Theo, pushing away the painful memories. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's get you some breakfast." As we eat, I watch Theo taking in his thin frame and the shadows under his eyes. He's been through so much, more than any child should have to bear. "Theo," I say softly, "I want you to know that you can always come to me. No matter what, I will always be here for you." He looks up at me, his eyes filled with a wisdom beyond his years. "I know, Grandma, you're the only one who cares about me." Those words, spoken with such certainty, break my heart all over again, but they also fuel my determination. I will not let Marla and Jonah continue to neglect their son. I will not let Theo suffer any longer. I may be just a retired school teacher, but I have a lifetime of experience and a grandmother's love on my side. I will gather the evidence I need, no matter how long it takes. I will fight for Theo's future, even if it means going against my own daughter. Marla and Jonah may have forgotten what it means to be a parent, but I will never forget what it means to be a grandmother, and I will do whatever it takes to give Theo the life he deserves. Days turn into weeks, and Theo starts to open up to me. We spend our evenings curled up on the couch, watching his favorite movies and sharing stories. It's during one of these moments that he begins to talk about his life with Marla and Jonah. "They always forget about me," he says, his voice barely a whisper. "They leave me alone for hours, sometimes days. I get so hungry, Grandma." My heart clenches, and I pull him closer. "What do you do when you're hungry, sweetheart?" He shrugs, his small shoulders heavy with burden. "I try to find food in the kitchen, but there's never much. Mommy and Daddy buy lots of stuff for themselves, but they forget to buy food for me." Anger boils inside me, but I keep my voice steady. "What kind of stuff do they buy, Theo?" "Lots of clothes and shiny things. Daddy always has a new watch or a new phone, and Mommy buys so many shoes and bags. But when I ask for new clothes or toys, they say we don't have money." I close my eyes, trying to calm the rage that threatens to consume me. How can they be so selfish, so negligent? "Theo, I want you to know that what they're doing is wrong. You deserve so much better, and I'm going to make sure you get it." He looks up at me, his eyes filled with a tentative hope. "Really, Grandma? You promise?" "I promise, sweetheart, I won't let them hurt you anymore." That night, as Theo sleeps, I start to plan. I know I need evidence, solid proof of Marla and Jonah's neglect. I can't just make accusations without backing them up. I start to keep a journal, documenting every detail Theo shares with me. Every missed meal, every lonely night, every broken promise. It breaks my heart to write it all down, but I know it's necessary. I also begin to track their spending, using the skills I learned as a school teacher to create detailed spreadsheets. Designer clothes, expensive gadgets, lavish vacations, all while their son goes hungry and neglected. Weeks turn into months, and my evidence grows. Theo starts to thrive under my care, his laughter filling the house once more. He excels in school, makes new friends, and discovers a love for painting. But the shadow of his parents' neglect still hangs over him. He has nightmares, waking up screaming in the middle of the night. He flinches at loud noises and unexpected touches. The scars they've left on his heart will take time to heal. One evening, as we're sitting at the dinner table, Theo looks up at me with a seriousness that breaks my heart. "Grandma, do you think Mommy and Daddy love me?" I reach across the table, taking his small hand in mine. "I think they love you in their own way, Theo, but sometimes people make bad choices. They forget what's really important." He nods, his eyes filled with a wisdom beyond his years. "I'm glad I have you, Grandma. You always remember what's important." Tears fill my eyes and I squeeze his hand. "And I always will, sweetheart. I will always put you first. Always." That night, as I tuck Theo into bed, I make a silent promise. I will confront Marla and Jonah. I will make them see the error of their ways. And if they don't change, if they don't step up and be the parents Theo deserves, I will take action. I may be just a grandmother, but I have the power of love and the strength of determination on my side, and I will use every ounce of it to protect my grandson and give him the life he deserves. The day I've been dreading finally arrives. Marla and Jonah show up at my doorstep. their faces etched with same entitled smirks I've come to despise. They breeze past me into the living room, not even bothering to ask about Theo. "We need money, Mom," Marla says, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Jonah lost his job and we're struggling to make ends meet. I stare at her, incredulous. "You're struggling? What about Theo? Do you have any idea what he's been through?" Jonah scoffs, rolling his eyes. "Oh, please. The kid's fine. He's got a roof over his head and clothes on his back. What more does he need?" Anger surges through me, hot and fierce. "He needs love, Jonah. He needs attention and care. He needs parents who put him first." Marla laughs, a harsh, grating sound. "Love doesn't pay the bills, Mom. We're doing the best we can. Now, are you going to help us or not?" I take a deep breath, trying to calm the rage that threatens to consume me. "No, Marla, I'm not going to help you. Not until you start being the parents Theo deserves." Their faces twist with anger, and Jonah takes a step forward, his fists clenched. "You don't get to tell us how to raise our kid, old woman. We're his parents, not you." I stand my ground, meeting his gaze head on. "Parents, you don't deserve to call yourselves that. Theo has been here for months, and not once have you checked on him. Not once have you asked about his well-being." Marla rolls her eyes, her lips curled in a sneer. "He's just a kid, Mom. He doesn't know what he wants. We're the adults here." I shake my head, my heart breaking for the child they've so carelessly cast aside. "Theo knows exactly what he wants, Marla. He wants love, he wants attention, he wants to feel like he matters." Jonah laughs, a cold, cruel sound. "Love isn't going to pay our bills or put food on the table. We need money, and we need it now." I feel a surge of anger so strong it nearly takes my breath away. "Get out of my house. Now." Marla's eyes widen and she takes a step back. "What?" "You heard me. Get out, and don't come back until you're ready to be the parents Theo deserves." Jonah's face turns red and he takes a menacing step forward. "You can't do this. He's our kid, not yours." I stand tall, my voice steady and firm. "Watch me. I will do whatever it takes to protect Theo from your neglect and selfishness, even if it means going against my own daughter." Marla's eyes narrow, and she grabs Jonah's arm. "Come on, we don't need this. We'll find the money somewhere else." They storm out of the house, slamming the door behind them. I sink onto the couch, my heart racing and my hands shaking. I know I've just crossed a line, but I don't care. Theo's well-being is all that matters now. I hear a small voice from the doorway, and I look up to see Theo standing there, his eyes wide and frightened. "Grandma, are you okay?" I open my arms, and he runs into them, burying his face in my chest. I hold him tight, my heart swelling with love and determination. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay, I promise." As I hold Theo in my arms, I know that I've just started a war. Marla and Jonah won't give up easily, and they'll do everything in their power to make my life a living hell. But I'm ready for the fight. I have the truth on my side, and I have the love of a child who deserves so much better. I will not back down. I will not let them win. I will fight for Theo's future, no matter what it takes. The confrontation with Marla and Jonah leaves me shaken, but more determined than ever. I know I need to act fast, to gather the evidence I need to protect Theo. I can't let them take him back, not when he's just starting to heal. I spend the next few days making phone calls and doing research. I hire a private investigator, a woman named Sarah, who comes highly recommended. She listens to my story with a sympathetic ear and promises to do everything she can to help. "I've seen cases like this before," she says, her voice gentle but firm. "Parents who prioritize their own wants over their child's needs. It's a tough battle, but it's one worth fighting." I nod, my heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah. I don't know what I would do without your help." She smiles, patting my hand. "You're doing the right thing, Celine. Theo is lucky to have you in his corner." With Sarah on the case, I turn my attention to documenting Theo's time with me. I start a journal, writing down every milestone and every happy moment. I take pictures of him laughing, playing, and thriving in my care. I also start to gather evidence of my own financial stability. I may be a retired school teacher, but I've always been careful with my money. I have a comfortable savings account and a paid-off mortgage. I can provide for Theo in ways that Marla and Jonah never could. Theo seems to sense the change in me, the newfound purpose that drives my every action. He starts to open up more, sharing his fears and his hopes for the future. Grandma, do you think I could be an artist someday? He asks one evening, as we sit together on the porch swing. I smile, my heart swelling with pride. Of course you can, sweetheart. You can be anything you want to be, and I'll be here to support you every step of the way. He leans his head against my shoulder, his small body relaxing into mine. I love you, Grandma. Thank you for taking care of me. Tears fill my eyes, and I wrap my arms around him, holding him close. I love you too, Theo. More than anything in this world. As the weeks pass, Sarah keeps me updated on her progress. She's managed to document Marla and Jonah's lavish spending habits, their frequent trips to expensive restaurants and exclusive clubs. She's also captured photos of Theo's old room, the bare walls and the empty fridge. It's clear that they're not providing for his basic needs, she says, her voice tight with anger. No child should have to live like that. I nod, my heart breaking all over again. What's our next step? Sarah takes a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine. We file for emergency custody. We present the evidence to a judge and show them that Theo is better off in your care. I feel a flicker of fear, but I push it down. I know this is the right thing to do. I know this is what Theo needs. Let's do it, I say, my voice steady and strong. Let's fight for Theo's future. That night, as I tuck Theo into bed, I make him a promise. I will always fight for you, sweetheart. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone says, you are my world, and I will do everything in my power to keep you safe and happy. He smiles up at me, his eyes shining with love and trust. I know you will, Grandma. You're my hero. I kiss his forehead, my heart swelling with a fierce, unshakable love. I may be just a grandmother, but I have the power to change Theo's life, and I will not rest until he has the future he deserves. The day I've been waiting for finally arrives. Sarah calls me, her voice tight with excitement. I have the evidence, Celine. It's even worse than we thought. I feel a chill run down my spine. I have my heart pounding in my chest. What did you find? I managed to get my hands on their bank statements and credit card bills. They've been spending thousands of dollars on designer clothes, expensive dinners, and lavish vacations. Meanwhile, Theo's school records show that he's been showing up to class in worn-out clothes and without lunch money. I close my eyes, my stomach churning with anger and disgust. That's not all, Sarah continues, her voice trembling with rage. I also got footage from a hidden camera I placed outside their house. It shows Marla and Jonah leaving Theo alone for hours on end, sometimes even overnight, while they're out partying and living it up. Tears fill my eyes and I grip the phone tighter. I knew it was bad, but this is unforgivable. We have more than enough evidence to file for emergency custody, Sarah says, her voice firm and determined. I'll start putting together the paperwork right away. Thank you, Sarah, I whisper, my heart swelling with gratitude. I don't know what I would do without you. You're welcome, Celine. Theo is lucky to have you fighting for him. I hang up the phone, my mind reeling with the weight of what I've just learned. I knew Marla and Jonah were neglectful, but seeing the proof laid out in front of me is a whole different level of horror. I take a deep breath, trying to calm the rage that courses through my veins. I know I need to be strong for Theo, to show him that he has someone in his corner who will never let him down. I find him in the living room, curled up on the couch with a book. He looks up when I enter, his eyes wide and curious. Is everything okay, Grandma? I sit down beside him, taking his small hand in mine. Everything's going to be okay, sweetheart. I have some news for you. He sits up straighter, his face etched with concern. What is it? I take a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I've been working with a private investigator to gather evidence of how your parents have been treating you, and we've found enough to prove that you're better off living with me. His eyes widen and he squeezes my hand tighter. You mean I don't have to go back to them? I shake my head, my heart breaking at the relief in his voice. No, sweetheart, you never have to go back to them again. I'm going to fight for custody of you to make sure you have a safe and happy home. Tears fill his eyes and he throws his arms around me, burying his face in my chest. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you so much. I hold him tight, my own tears falling freely. You don't have to thank me, Theo. You deserve so much better than what they've given you, and I'm going to make sure you get it. We sit like that for a long time, holding each other and crying tears of relief and joy. I know the road ahead won't be easy, that Marla and Jonah will fight me every step of the way. But I also know that I have the truth on my side and the love of a child who deserves the world. And I will not rest until he has the life he's always dreamed of. As the sun sets outside the window, casting a warm glow over the room, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. I may be just a grandmother, but I have the power to change Theo's life, and I will not let him down. The courtroom is packed, the air thick with tension and anticipation. I sit beside Theo, holding his hand tightly as we wait for the judge to enter. Sarah is on my other side, her presence a comforting reminder of the truth we're fighting for. Marla and Jonah sit across the aisle, their faces etched with anger and resentment. They glare at me, their eyes filled with a hatred that takes my breath away. But I refuse to back down, refuse to let them intimidate me. The judge enters and the room falls silent. He's an older man, with a kind face and a no-nonsense demeanor. He looks at Theo, his eyes softening with compassion. "We're here today to determine the best interests of the child, Theo," he says, his voice firm but gentle. "I've reviewed the evidence presented by both sides, and I must say I'm deeply troubled by what I've seen." He turns to Marla and Jonah, his face hardening. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, the evidence against you is overwhelming. Bank statements, credit card bills, and video footage all show a pattern of neglect and emotional abuse. You've consistently prioritized your own wants and needs over the well-being of your child." Marla stands up, her face flushed with anger. "That's not true," she shouts, her voice shrill and desperate. "We love Theo. We've always done what's best for him." The judge shakes his head, his eyes narrowing. "The evidence says otherwise, Mrs. Johnson. You've left your child alone for hours, even days at a time. You've failed to provide him with basic necessities like food and clothing, and you've repeatedly ignored his emotional needs in favor of your own selfish desires." Jonah stands up, his fists clenched at his sides. "This is all her fault," he yells, pointing at me. "She's poisoned Theo against us. She's just a bitter old woman who wants to steal our son." I feel Theo flinch beside me, and I squeeze his hand tighter. The judge turns to me, his face softening. "Miss Celine, I've reviewed the documentation you've provided of your time with Theo. It's clear that you've provided him with a stable, loving home. You've put his needs first, and you've given him the emotional support he so desperately needs." Tears fill my eyes and I nod, my voice trembling. "I love Theo with all my heart. All I want is for him to have the life he deserves." The judge nods, his face etched with determination. And that's exactly what he's going to get. He turns back to Marla and Jonah, his voice firm and uncompromising. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I'm granting full custody of Theo to his grandmother, effective immediately. You will have supervised visitation once a month, but only if Theo wants to see you. And you will be required to attend parenting classes and therapy sessions to address your neglectful behavior." Marla collapses into her seat, her face buried in her hands. Jonah stands there, his mouth hanging open in shock. The judge turns to Theo, his face softening once again. "Theo, I want you to know that none of this is your fault. You are a brave, wonderful child, and you deserve all the love and happiness in the world. Your grandmother is going to take good care of you, and you never have to worry about being neglected or forgotten again." Theo looks up at me, his eyes shining with tears. "Thank you, Grandma," he whispers, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for fighting for me." I wrap my arms around him, holding him close as the tears stream down my face. "I will always fight for you, sweetheart. Always." As we leave the courtroom, hand in hand, I feel a sense of relief wash over me. The battle is won, but the healing has just begun. I know there will be tough days ahead, moments when Theo's pain and trauma will threaten to overwhelm him, but I also know that I will be there for him every step of the way. I will love him, support him, and guide him towards the bright future he deserves, and I will never, ever let him forget how much he is loved. The days after the custody hearing are a whirlwind of activity. Theo and I settle into a new routine, one filled with laughter, love, and endless possibilities. We enroll him in a new school, one with a strong arts program and a nurturing environment. Theo thrives in his new surroundings, his confidence growing with each passing day. He makes new friends, joins the school's art club, and even starts taking piano lessons. I watch with pride as he blossoms into the happy, healthy child he was always meant to be. But the scars of his past are never far from the surface. There are nights when he wakes up screaming, his nightmares filled with the echoes of Marla and Jonah's neglect. There are moments when he flinches at loud noises or unexpected touches, his body still remembering the trauma he endured. But through it all, I am there for him. I hold him when he cries, soothe him when he's scared, and remind him every day of how loved and valued he is. Slowly but surely, the wounds begin to heal, and the light returns to his eyes. Marla and Jonah, on the other hand, face the consequences of their actions. The judge's ruling sends shockwaves through our small town, and soon the whispers begin. People who once admired them for their wealth and status now look at them with disgust and contempt. They lose friends, business deals, and their once pristine reputation. Marla tries to play the victim, spinning tales of how I stole her child and ruined her life. But no one believes her, not when the evidence of her neglect is so clear. Jonah, unable to handle the shame and humiliation, leaves town in the middle of the night, never to be seen again. Marla is left alone, a shell of the woman she once was. I almost feel sorry for her until I remember the pain she inflicted on her own child. Months pass and life settles into a new normal. Theo and I create new traditions, new memories to replace the painful ones of his past. We have movie nights and game nights, weekend hikes and lazy Sundays spent painting in the backyard. And then one day, something remarkable happens. Theo comes home from school, his face flushed with excitement. "Grandma, guess what? My artwork is going to be featured in the school's art show." I feel a surge of pride so strong it nearly takes my breath away. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." He beams at me, his eyes shining with joy. "I couldn't have done it without you, Grandma. You believed in me when no one else did." Tears fill my eyes and I pull him into a tight hug. "I will always believe in you, Theo. Always." The night of the art show arrives, and Theo's piece is the star of the show. It's a beautiful painting of a phoenix rising from the ashes, its wings spread wide against a blazing sky. The symbolism is clear, and it takes my breath away. As we stand there admiring his work, a familiar voice cuts through the crowd. "Theo? Is that you?" We turn to see Marla standing there, her face etched with a mix of shock and longing. Theo stiffens beside me, his hand reaching for mine. "What are you doing here?" I ask, my voice cold and unforgiving. Marla takes a step forward, her eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to see my son's artwork. I wanted to tell him how proud I am of him." Theo looks up at me, his face conflicted. I squeeze his hand, giving him the strength he needs. "You lost the right to be proud of me when you abandoned me," he says, his voice trembling but strong. "Grandma is my family now. She's the one who loves me and takes care of me." Marla's face crumples, and she nods, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "I know, and I'm sorry, Theo. I'm so sorry for everything." She turns to walk away, but Theo's voice stops her. "I forgive you, Mom, but I can't forget what you did. I hope you find peace, but I've already found mine." As we watch her walk away, I feel a sense of closure wash over me. The past will always be a part of us, but it doesn't define us. Theo is living proof of that. We may have started as two broken souls, but together we've created something beautiful. A family built on love, trust, and the unshakable bond between a grandmother and her grandson. And as we walk out of the art show, hand in hand, I know that no matter what the future holds, we'll face it together. Always.
My adorable son was born from the love between my husband and me. Yet my mother-in-law spitefully comments that he isn't cute. It's unbelievable to say such things to her own grandchild without hesitation. To make matters worse, she treats me as an unwanted intruder. If that's how she feels, then I can be just as. This is the story of a self-centered mother-in-law from hell and the daughter-in-law who stands up to her. My name is Stella. I got married to Marcus when I was 28. A year ago, our long-awaited son, Wayne, was born. When he was around 3 months old, I returned to work and entrusted him to daycare. I wanted to stay with him at home as long as I could, but we had our reasons. Marcus's job wasn't stable, and his income had been steadily decreasing. In fact, I now earn twice as much as he does. With a newborn and more expenses to come, I made the decision to return to work. I don't mind working since I actually love what I do. However, there's someone who doesn't approve of it. Ruth, the mother-in-law. She moved in with us around the same time as Wayne was born, and for some reason, she seems to have a problem with me. Not only does she criticize my nursing, but she also finds faults in my everyday actions.
Leaving your baby in daycare at such a young age? What kind of mother are you? Women have always been expected to stay at home and take care of the household.
She sounds like she's stuck in the 50s. She relentlessly tries to enlighten me with opinions at such a level. As soon as I return home from work with my son, she starts yelling.
You're working this late? Again? Don't you think it's a pity for Wayne?
I spend the whole day with him on my days off, and he has a stable routine at daycare, so it's all good. Whenever I retort, she furrows her brows.
Do you really trust the words of some stranger at daycare over your own family? If you keep this up, he won't grow up to be a well-adjusted and happy child.
Despite not contributing to his care on a regular basis, she still has the audacity to lecture me about childcare. Moreover, she questions my character without hesitation.
I regret moving in with a daughter-in-law who only cares about her job. Why did Marcus marry someone like you? I feel like I'm going crazy from the stress every day.
I can't hold myself back to those statements. If you dislike it so much, you're free to move out, you know. You do realize why we ended up living together, right? In fact, there was a reason she moved into our house. Originally, she was living with her husband at their own home. One day, he got into a car accident, which left him paralyzed from the waist down. Additionally, it was discovered that his dementia was advancing. Unable to handle him any longer, she had to place him in a care facility. Following that, she pressured us to move in with her. Both Marcus and I had jobs, and it wasn't feasible for us to move from our current home considering the commute. So one day, she decided to unilaterally bring her belongings to our house and moved in without our consent. It was like a forceful cohabitation where she just moved in on her own accord. We know you're in a tough spot, so we accepted living together. But didn't we promise not to interfere with each other?
Oh, did we? I don't remember that at all.
Despite reminding her of the promise, she doesn't seem to care, as if she knows she won't be asked to leave. Her attitude is getting on my nerves. Please, stop it already. We agreed not to interfere, and that's why I okayed having you with us. This isn't what we agreed on.
You're so annoying. I wonder why you aren't as lovely as Megan. She's such a sweet girl, you know.
Megan is Marcus's brother's wife, which makes her my sister-in-law. To be honest, she isn't as sweet as Ruth says. I'd say she's more cunning than having a bad personality. She got married to my brother-in-law, Logan, and became a homemaker right away, which Ruth approves. She often invites her to our house, and they gossip about me.
Listen, Megan, you know, Stella's still working.
Really? How could she leave such little Wayne and go to work?
Right? You, on the other hand, are an excellent wife by choosing to be a homemaker. You have peace of mind when you have kids.
I admire you, Ruth, so I'll do my best. The cycle of trying to please each other goes on endlessly. What irritates me is that they intentionally have those conversations loudly within my hearing range. I truly despise them. Megan seems to want to gain Ruth's favor more and eventually starts speaking ill of me voluntarily.
Marcus is making about the same salary as Logan, right? And yet, Stella has to work, which means that she's bad at managing her finances.
A few years ago, his salary might have been close to Logan's, but it's been reduced since then. I haven't told them about his company facing financial troubles due to pride. Once Megan starts criticizing me, Ruth gleefully chimes in.
That's so true. It's her fault for being bad at handling money, and she even leaves her son to others. Megan, don't be like her, okay?
I know. Don't worry, Ruth. I have so much respect for you and will never disappoint you.
Oh my, you're such a good daughter-in-law.
They engage in a flattery contest, and that makes me feel so awkward just by listening to it. I wish they take it elsewhere. It's just adding to my stress. Feeling like I've reached my limit living with Ruth, I decided to talk to Marcus about it. Hey, I want to talk to you about your mom. She invites Megan over every day, and they make fun of me all the time.
Really? Mom?
Since I usually get home earlier than him, he's never seen what's happening to me. As expected, he looks confused. Yeah, even though we promised not to interfere, she's been complaining about me working and constantly trash-talking me with Megan. I can't take it anymore. He ponders for a while, and then something unbelievable comes out of his mouth.
Well, Megan gets along with her, right? So maybe you should try to get closer to her too.
What? Were you even listening to me? She even questions my character, you know. How am I supposed to get closer to someone like that? When I press him, he scratches his head and says,
Come on, don't get so worked up. At least try doing the same as Megan. Maybe then Mom will have a change of heart.
What the heck? Are you telling me to kiss her butt? Whatever then. I was stupid to ask for help. There's no one on my side. The thought makes me more frustrated than angry. The next day, the usual taunting from Ruth and Megan continues. Just as I start preparing dinner after getting home, I hear another comment.
I'm sure she's going to make another lousy dinner. She always takes shortcuts, and I really dislike that about her.
This is all because she's working, isn't it? You and I would never serve our husband lousy meals.
To tell you the truth, Ruth's cooking isn't anything awe-inspiring either. It's too heavily seasoned, and not that tasty. As for Megan, if she spends as much time at our house, I think her skills are nothing to boast about. While cursing them in my mind, I silently continue with dinner preparations. When Marcus returns, they visibly change their attitudes and stop bad-mouthing me. It makes him doubt what I've told him. Then an unexpected incident occurs. While I'm at work, I receive a call from the daycare. After hearing about the situation, I called Marcus and rushed home. There I find Ruth and my wailing son. What do you think you're doing, Ruth? Taking him from the daycare without permission? When I shout at her, she sighs in exasperation. She looks at me as if I'm a fool.
What are you talking about? I did it for the sake of my grandson. Daycare is just a waste of money. Childcare is a mother's job after all.
That's your own unreasonable belief. I entrust him to the daycare for a reason, and taking him without permission is totally outrageous. It's no different from kidnapping.
Kidnapping? He's my grandson, you know.
It doesn't matter. You ignored the daycare staff stopping you and took him out. That's no different from kidnapping. Even then, she just shrugs her shoulders. To make matters worse, she utters something abominable.
This is ridiculous. To be honest, I find you and Wayne unpleasant to have around. If you have a problem with that, just get out of this house.
It doesn't matter what she thinks of me, but she has no affection for her grandchild. I have a major warning going off inside me, especially to say that right in front of him without hesitation. It's absolutely impossible to keep living with someone like her. I'm not going to let her get away with insulting my precious son. I must protect him, no matter what. Just at that moment, Marcus comes home. I immediately open my mouth. Honey, it was her who took Wayne from the daycare. I've had enough. I can't live in the same house with her anymore. That's when she suddenly shows fake tears, playing the victim.
Please, Marcus, listen to me. She called me a kidnapper. I was just picking up my adorable little Wayne.
Just picking up? Her words get me fired up even more. Don't be ridiculous. You just said my son was unpleasant to have around, didn't you? And you even told us to leave. Leave where? This is our house.
Are you pretending to be a good mother just in front of Marcus? Help me, Marcus. She's always bullying me like this.
Seeing her cry and appeal to Marcus, everything seems utterly foolish to me. If he were to side with her after witnessing this melodramatic performance, at that moment I vow to leave this house with my son if necessary. The first to break the silence is Marcus.
Well, I need to talk to Stella alone. Mom, please go back to your room.
He's been taking her side, so his request leaves her wide-eyed.
What are you asking me? You don't need to listen to her side of the story. I'm the one suffering through all of this.
It concerns Wayne this time too. That's why as parents, she and I need to talk first.
She wears an unimpressed expression throughout, but she probably doesn't want to argue with him, so she reluctantly agrees. Afterward, we talked for hours about the incident and everything leading up to it until we found a solution. A few days later, we planned to inform Ruth about the decision.
Sorry for keeping you waiting, Mom. We've finally sorted things out,
Marcus says with all smiles. Upon seeing him, she seems to believe that he has taken her side, and her voice is filled with joy.
Really? I can finally get away from Stella, huh?
Without listening to our side of the story, she's delighted. She calls Logan and Megan over and starts bad-mouthing about me, just as always.
Oh, this is such a relief. Today's finally the day I can part ways with Stella. Isn't that right, Stella?
I answer with a big smile, saying, Of course.
In that case, get out of here quickly and take that not-so-cute child who looks just like you. From now on, this house belongs to Marcus, Logan, Megan, and me. Bye-bye.
Then Marcus, who's been quiet, slowly spoke up.
Well, honey, shall we go?
Huh?
Right, let's go.
Wait, what?
She seems utterly confused, looking at Marcus and then me back and forth. We carry our things and head toward the front door as a family of 3. She stops us there.
Wait, what on earth is going on? You're going to stay with us, right, Marcus?
What nonsense.
He turns around to face her with a cold stare.
I'm leaving with Stella. I can't put up with your baseless accusations anymore.
She seems shaken, her body trembling as she slumps to the floor.
Why? How can you take her side?
I heard everything from the staff at the daycare. How you took him away without permission, and even cursed them out. How you've been speaking ill of Stella at the daycare too.
That's...
I never thought you were such a horrible person. I'm disappointed in you. Go ahead and have yourself surrounded by people who listen to you and have a good life.
Then he pushes me forward, and we walk out of the house. I hear her crying and calling his name for a while. On the way to our new home, he apologizes to me.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize everything sooner. Please, forgive me.
Oh, please. Just taking action like this is more than enough. I give him a peck on his cheek and my brightest smile. What makes me happier than anything else is that he believed my side of the story. From then on, we've had no more dealings with Ruth and Megan and returned to a peaceful life. Later on, when we canceled the lease on that house, Ruth had no place to go and ended up moving in with Logan and Megan. Her presence strained their finances, and Megan had to start working. Ruth is now all alone at home. She has no one to talk bad about or gossip with. What's more, she's constantly quarreling with Megan, who used to be so close.
Because of you, I have to work now. This is messed up.
Am I the one at fault here?
You're so annoying, useless old lady.
Seeing Megan's true colors, Logan's feelings cooled off, and they're currently in divorce mediation. She had the time and luxury to act cute in front of him before, but as she started working and became increasingly stressed, her true nature came to the surface. No matter what situation they find themselves in, I have no intention of dealing with them ever again. My plan is to build a happy family with Marcus and Wayne.
Mrs. Gibson, please come quickly.
I rushed over when I heard the teacher's words, only to find my son lying on the ground unconscious. He had fallen off the playground equipment after colliding with a friend. Despite my anxiety and calls for help, my husband, who was at work, wouldn't come to our son's side. It's just too much, even if he's at work. His own son was being rushed to the emergency room. And then I realized the horrendous reason why he wouldn't rush over to his son. I'm Erica Gibson. I live with my husband Jason and our elementary school-age son Sean. Jason works in the hospitality industry and doesn't have weekends off, so he hardly ever attends school events for Sean. He has never been to a parent-teacher conference or a performance. When I received a letter about a parent-child field trip, I doubted he could make it, but asked him anyway. Hey, there is a parent-child field trip coming up during the next long weekend.
A long weekend? I have to work, so no can do.
I felt a pang of sadness, even though I knew the answer. Talking to other moms, it seemed like everyone else was adjusting their schedules to attend with their spouses. Other dads who usually work weekends are taking the day off to go. I mentioned this half-heartedly, and he clearly got annoyed.
So what? You want me to take off too? You do know what my job entails, right?
Yeah, I know. Sorry. So Sean and I ended up going on the field trip, just the two of us. While many families attended as a trio, there were also fathers and children without the mothers. It happens moms have to work too, I said to myself. I tried to enjoy the day with Sean, ignoring the others. But when the kids went off to play, I couldn't help feeling lonely. It was hard to join in the conversations with other moms who were with their spouses. Alone and lost in thought, Sean's teacher suddenly came up to me, looking worried.
Mrs. Gibson, please come quickly.
What is it?
Sean collided with a friend and fell off the playground equipment.
He did? I hurried to the scene, where my son lay unconscious. The teacher had already called an ambulance, and I accompanied my son, who was still out cold. At the hospital, he was immediately taken to the exam room. I realized I hadn't told Jason anything and frantically called him. Hello? Oh my gosh, Jason! Sean fell off the playground equipment and hit his head. He's unconscious.
What? You should have called an ambulance before calling me.
The teacher already did. Right now, he's being taken to the hospital for tests.
I see. So he's at the hospital. Text me once you get the test result.
I couldn't believe my ears. He's not coming to the hospital during this emergency? Are you out of your mind? Get over here right now. He responded with a tone of indifference.
Hey, I already told you I can't get time off this long weekend.
But this is an emergency.
He's at the hospital, right? There's nothing I can do if I go there. All we can do now is wait for the results. Let me know when you have them. Bye.
He said that and abruptly ended the call. I stared at my smartphone, shocked. He wouldn't even come home for our son's emergency. As I stood there, crestfallen, a man approached me.
Are you Sean's mom? I'm Dan's father, Scott.
Scott was the father of the friend Sean had collided with. I remembered he was the dad who came along with his son because the mother couldn't make it. He looked really sorry.
I'm terribly sorry for what happened.
I quickly shook my head. I heard from their teacher that Sean and Dan collided while running. It was partly our fault too, so please don't worry about it. Next to Scott, Dan stood with bandages, his eyes red from crying. It's because I bumped into Sean. I gently said to him, Dan, it's not your fault. Sean will be just fine. Will you play with him again when he's better? He nodded tearfully. Scott thanked me, looking relieved.
Thank you for your kind words. I wish my wife could be here to apologize too, but I'm sorry she couldn't make it.
No, it's fine. My husband couldn't make it back from work either. Is your wife working too?
Well...
He hesitated a bit.
Actually, my wife is on a trip with friends. It was planned before the field trip, so she couldn't cancel it. Embarrassing, I know.
Oh, I see.
I've tried contacting her several times about the accident, but I haven't been able to reach her yet.
Just as he finished speaking, his phone rang.
It's my wife. Excuse me for a moment.
He hastily answered the call, explaining the situation.
So that's what happened. How soon can you get here? In 2 hours? But how will you come? You can't drive. Oh? A friend is with you. That's good then. Be safe.
After hanging up, he reported back to me with a sigh of relief.
Sorry about that. I just got in touch with my wife. She has a friend who happens to have some errands to run around here, and she can drive her here. There will be about 2 hours.
That's good to hear. Then my phone rang. Oh, it's my husband, excuse me. I stepped aside to answer. Jason, what's up?
I can make it there too. I'll be off work in about 2 hours, and then I will head straight there.
Really? That's great. After hanging up, I also reported back to Scott. My husband will be here in about 2 hours as well. It's good we could both speak to them. Then we were called by the doctor with Sean's test result. Thankfully, Sean showed no abnormalities. He had just lost consciousness temporarily from the shock and needed to be observed for now. Even though they said there was nothing wrong, I couldn't relax not knowing when he would wake up. I returned to the waiting area. where Scott was waiting for me with Dan, now asleep in his arms. We talked about our families to distract ourselves. Scott shared that Dan's mother, Marie, was a stay-at-home mom, but she often went out with friends on weekday nights and weekends recently. During those times, he would take care of Dan.
During the weekdays, my wife takes care of Dan all the time, so I want to give her some time off on nights and weekends. But if I knew something like this would happen, I should have insisted she cancel her trip for the field trip.
Listening to his story, I couldn't help but compare him to my husband Jason. Jason, even on his days off during the week, prefers to go out alone for a break. In contrast, Scott actively participates in childcare. I found myself confiding in him about my husband's shortcomings. As we talked, I noticed a strange coincidence. Jason's and Marie's behaviors matched exactly. The days they couldn't attend events or went out on weekday nights were the same. I suddenly became curious and asked, "By the way, my husband went on a business trip to New York last month."
When was that?
It was the first weekend of last month.
My wife also said she was going on a trip with friends on those days and brought back souvenirs from New York.
No way. We looked at each other in realization. It had been almost 2 hours since Jason and the other called. The first to contact was Jason. My husband is almost at the parking lot, so I will go to meet him. I told Scott and headed to the parking lot. Peering cautiously into the car, I saw no one in the passenger's seat. I had absurdly imagined that Dan's mother might be with him. I brought him back to the room where our son was sleeping, trying to look nonchalant. After Jason exchanged brief greetings with Scott, Dan's mother appeared. Jason and Marie froze for a moment when they saw each other, something I didn't miss. He greeted Dan's mother as if nothing was amiss.
Hi, I'm Sean's father. Our son always talks about your son. Nice to meet you.
His voice was strained, and she replied, also flustered. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Dan's mother, Marie. I decided to stir the pot a bit. Oh, Marie, is this your first time meeting my husband? She answered, clearly panicking. Of course it is. We've never met before. You don't have to deny it so vehemently. You could have met him at school events or parent-teaching meetings, right? That's impossible. I had no idea Jason's son was in the same class as mine. I hadn't mentioned my husband's name in front of her yet. Gotcha. This was a clear sign. I was now certain of my husband and her affair. Moreover, it seems they didn't know their children or classmates. That's strange. How do you know my husband's name if this is your first meeting? She stuttered in response. Well, that's because, Jason interjected, defensively and angrily.
Hey, Erica, what are you trying to do? You are being rude. She's the mother of our important son's friend. Show some respect.
His shouting woke up Dan, who pointed at Jason and said, That's the man who comes to our house. Man who comes to our house? The room went silent. Marie tried to cover up Dan's words in a panic. Dan, what are you talking about? Maybe you are confusing him for someone else. But he continued, looking puzzled. It's not a mistake. Dad, can I have your tablet? After receiving the tablet from his father, he showed us an image. Look at this. The photo showed his toy train set in his room. What about it? This is a toy you always play with. Dan proceeded to point at the man behind the train set. This man here, that's him. I recognize him because I look at this picture from time to time. In the background, Jason could be seen chatting amicably with Marie in the living room. There's no escaping this now, I muttered, glaring at them. Scott, too, was shaking with anger. He yelled at his wife in anger.
So you've been bringing your affair partner into our house while I'm at work? And on this date, I was away on a business trip.
I was stunned to see the date. This date? Jason, you didn't come home from your business trip either. Did you stay at Marie's house?
Oh, well, she said it was okay, so I just...
He admitted to the affair easily, pushing the blame onto Marie. She quickly retorted. What? Blaming me? You said it was a waste of money to stay out. Their ugly argument was interrupted by Scott.
Enough! Bringing your affair partner into a house with our son. You're unfit to be a mother. It's despicable. I utterly despise you.
Jason seized the opportunity to make her the villain.
Exactly. She's unfit to be a mother. At least, I've never met her in front of Sean. I care about my child.
What? Did he really just say that? This is absurd. Anger started boiling inside me. Don't be ridiculous. You didn't even try to get to the hospital when Sean was unconscious, using work as an excuse.
No, that's not true. I'm here at the hospital now, and I?
That's only because she decided to come. Until Scott told her about our kid's injury, you had no intention to coming here at all.
Well, at that time, I thought it was okay without me.
It's not about whether it's okay or not. A father should rush over when he hears his child is unconscious. Instead, you prioritized your trip with your mistress. You're no father.
You can think what you want, but I'm Sean's father. What if he doesn't wake up? Can a stay-at-home mom like you keep paying for hospital bills? Without me, you and our son couldn't survive.
Painfully, I realized I didn't have enough savings to keep paying the hospital bills. Did I have to turn a blind eye to his infidelity? Just as I was about to resign myself, a faint voice came from the bed. Mom. I turned around to see Sean barely opening his eyes. Sean! I clung to my son, and he hugged me back tightly, then said, It's okay if Dad leaves. I will be fine. I will protect you, Mom. Hearing his words, Jason stood there stunned.
Sean, why would you say that?
Sean answered firmly. Because you're leaving, right, Dad? I heard you on the phone the other night after Mom fell asleep.
On the phone?
Yeah, I heard you talking when I got up to use the bathroom. You said, I feel nothing for Erica. If it weren't for the kid, I'd have left to be with you already. Jason's face turned pale. So, Dad, I will make your wish come true. I don't have to be your son. I don't need a dad anymore. Jason was shocked by our son's words. Contrarily, his words finally made me resolve. I've made up my mind. I want a divorce. After I told this to my husband, Scott handed me his business card.
I will help you with your decision, Erica.
The card he gave me showed he was the head of a law firm.
There must be plenty of evidence besides this toy train photo. I will take care of filing for alimony and child support. I plan to do the same with my wife, so it's killing two birds with one stone.
Marie panicked at his words. Wait! I haven't agreed to a divorce yet! I won't divorce you! Scott then coldly said to her,
You are joking, right? You don't have a choice after having an affair. A mother who brings her affair partner into a house with her child is unfit. If you want to fight it, we'll go to court. You know how high my win rate is, right? And with evidence like this, I can't lose even if I want to.
Seemingly resigned, she slumped and agreed to sign the divorce papers and pay the compensation. Seeing her submit, Jason also signed a pledge to pay alimony and child support. He probably realized that it was futile to go against a lawyer like Scott. Later, both our marriages ended in divorce. Now that they were free, Marie and Jason, as planned, started living together. But their life didn't go as expected. Once they moved in, they began to suspect each other of having affairs, leading to a tense relationship. Eventually, Jason actually cheated with another married woman. Unsurprisingly, he was easily caught and faced another alimony claim. Marie also had an affair, but her lover just used her for money and then left her. She spent all her savings, and Jason was drowning in debt from the alimony payments. They blame each other, yet they can't separate and continue to live together miserably. It's clear their financial situation will soon become untenable, but I have no sympathy for them. They brought it upon themselves. Meanwhile, thanks to Scott's help, I received more than enough in alimony and child support. And now Sean and I are living a peaceful life. Sean has returned to his normal life without any issues and continues to play happily with Dan. Scott has become a good confidant, more than just a mom friend, someone I can talk to about anything. My wish now is to continue this happy life with my son, just the two of us. Stay calm and listen. Your husband is at the OBGYN clinic where I work right now. I received a frantic phone call one day from my best friend who works at the hospital. I wondered what on earth my husband would be doing at the OBGYN clinic. What do you mean? Is he there by himself? No, he came with a pregnant woman who is showing quite a bit. He doesn't have any sisters or pregnant relatives that I know of. I was suspicious. Could you be mistaking him for someone else? Maybe someone who just looks like my husband? It's definitely him. I remember his face from your wedding, right down to the position of his mole. I can't be wrong. Plus, I heard the pregnant woman calling out your husband's name. Hearing that, I told her with urgency in my voice, "All right, I'm on my way. Please watch until the end to see how this tumultuous situation unfolds. My name is Madeline, a 33-year-old working housewife. After graduating college, I got a job at a major online retailer. I'm still there, now as a team leader. It's busy, but a rewarding life. I met my husband Lance through a friend when I was 28. He worked at a small to medium-sized company. I was immediately drawn to his refreshing and kind demeanor, and we started dating. For context, he was earning around $1,400, while I made almost twice that. Even though I earned more, I was content as long as I was with him. So when he proposed, I happily accepted. We rented an apartment halfway between our workplaces and started our life together. He was great with household chores, and we enjoyed a happy newlywed life. He often said back then,
"I'd love to have kids soon after we get married. I really like kids."
Would you prefer a boy or girl?
Either one. I'd raise a girl like a princess. And if it's a boy, I'd love to play baseball with him.
Then we better start saving up. We were full of excitement for the future. About a year into our marriage, something wonderful happened. I discovered I was pregnant. Lance, it looks like we are going to have a baby.
What? Really? Oh my gosh, Madeline!
He hugged me joyfully. I felt enveloped in happiness in his arms. We confirmed the baby's heartbeat, and he took great care of me during the tough times of morning sickness. He did most of the housework, and even went to different supermarkets to find food I craved. I always expressed my gratitude to him. "Thank you so much, honey. I really appreciate everything you do.
It's nothing, babe. You are carrying our child. This is the least I can do.
I truly felt lucky to have married him. Then, tragically, at the 15-week checkup, the doctor delivered shocking news.
We can't find the baby's heartbeat.
My baby had passed away inside me. When I told this to Lance, crying, he was devastated. Lance, the baby's heartbeat isn't there.
What? Does that mean it's a miscarriage?
Yes. In front of a speechless Lance, I broke down in tears. It was the hardest night of my life. Afterward, while I was recovering from the shock and undergoing procedures at the hospital, Lance handled all the paperwork. I couldn't get back on my feet for a while, and even took a few months off from work. I managed to do the household chores, but tears would often unexpectedly spill. Lance seemed unsure of how to help.
Madeline, let's have dinner together.
I don't want to.
But you need to eat for your health.
Just leave me alone. Looking back, I might have been at fault too. But I was in shock from losing our child and couldn't think straight. Time passed, and I gradually started to look forward again. Lance, I'm sorry for everything. I'm okay now. I remember how relieved he looked when I told him that. It wasn't just my husband who supported me through this tough time. My best friend Bethany was also there for me. She has been my friend since high school and was working as a nurse in a nearby city, specifically in an OBGYN clinic. She deeply sympathized with my situation and encouraged me. Don't blame yourself. These things unfortunately happen quite often. But many women have healthy babies after a miscarriage. Let's look forward again. Her words helped me find my way back, and I was deeply grateful to her. Life with Lance continued, but ever since the miscarriage, things were a bit awkward between us, and our conversations dwindled. About a year later, Lance started to get busier at work and was often away from home. He did overtime until past 10 p.m. on weekdays and worked on early Saturday or Sunday. The household chores increased, but I didn't say anything. I started to think it might be time to prepare for another baby. I began to improve my diet and take care of my body, but he didn't cooperate with my attempts to conceive. He became distant at night, turning his back to me and going to sleep. I started to feel resentful towards him. Then one day, I saw the spine of a book peeking out of Lance's open bag. The New Dad's Guide to Parenting and Baby's First Parent, the ultimate naming encyclopedia. I showed them to him when he woke up. My voice filled with excitement. Lance, you've been studying for a baby. He looked startled.
What? You looked in my bag?
It was open, and I just saw it. I'm so happy you've been thinking about it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it.
He said that and quickly put the books back in his bag before leaving for work. I was relieved he still wanted a child. That's great. I need to keep up with my efforts, I said to myself. I became more positive and devoted myself more to household chores and self-improvement. Then, on a Saturday, when Lance said he had to work, I finished my chores in the morning and was relaxing at home when I got a call from Bethany. Why is she calling me now? As I wondered, I answered the phone and heard her voice almost panicking. Hi, Madeline. What's your husband up to? He's at work. Why? Stay calm and listen. Your husband is at the OBGYN clinic where I work right now. What? Why on earth would Lance be at an OBGYN clinic? I remembered she recently started working at the clinic near my neighborhood. What do you mean? Is he there by himself? No, he came with a pregnant woman who is showing quite a bit. He doesn't have any sisters or pregnant relatives that I know of. I was suspicious. Could you be mistaking him for someone else? Maybe someone who just looks like my husband? It's definitely him. I remember his face from your wedding, right down to the position of his mole. I can't be wrong. Plus, I heard the pregnant woman calling out your husband's name. Hearing that, I told her with urgency in my voice, I'm on my way. Stall them if they look like they are leaving. After hanging up, I quickly got ready and rushed out of the front door. In about 15 minutes, I arrived at the OBGYN clinic where Bethany works. As I was catching my breath, the automatic doors of the hospital opened, and there were Lance and an unfamiliar woman, arm in arm. He, the woman, and I were now facing each other in front of the clinic. My husband's eyes widened in shock when he saw me. Lance, what is this all about? I asked as calmly as I could.
Madeline, why are you here?
That doesn't matter right now. What are you doing here with this pregnant woman at the OBGYN clinic? I want to know that. Then, he went pale and climbed up. Passerby and hospital staff looked at us curiously. The pregnant woman clinging to him then spoke up. Let's talk about this somewhere else, not here. Who the hell are you? Introduce yourself first. I'm Rachel. Let's move to that cafe over there. As we entered the cafe, Lance naturally sat next to her. It seemed like I already had my answer right then. Lance, explain this. What the F is going on?
The baby is actually mine.
Though I was somewhat prepared, this revelation hit me like a bolt of lightning. What do you mean? I'm your wife. Please calm down, ma'am. Rachel interrupted. Who the F are you to say that? Did you get involved with him knowing he's married? Yes. Yes? So you knew he was married? She began to cry, shaking as she spoke. I started working at his company last year. As we worked together, I found myself increasingly drawn to him. And he reciprocated my feelings. Feeling dizzy, I turned back to Lance. Is what she's saying true?
Yes, it's true.
What were you thinking? He began to speak quietly as I held my head in my hands.
Well, after the miscarriage, you became prickly, and the atmosphere at home was so bad I didn't want to come back. That's when I met her.
You met her and that led to having a child?
You know I've always wanted kids, right? You might have another miscarriage. But I thought a young woman like her would definitely bear my child.
I reached my breaking point right then and there. Not only had he betrayed me, but he was also implying that it was somehow my fault. I couldn't forgive this. I no longer needed such a husband. I tried to keep my voice steady as I spoke to him. Are you saying this is my fault?
Well, yeah. You couldn't have a child after all.
And you think that justifies your affair? Rachel butted in. But a woman who can definitely have a child is better, right? You stay out of this. She looked frightened at my loud voice, while Lance glared at me, holding her shoulder.
Don't raise your voice. She's pregnant, for goodness sake.
Lance. She looked up at him, her eyes watery, totally wrapped up in their own world. Suddenly, everything seemed so ridiculous, and I calmed down. I see. You do seem very close. Fine. I will step back.
You will? Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you, Mom. I will make Lance happy. The two of them held hands and rejoiced, and I watched them with a cold eye. But Lance, you do realize you're the guilty spouse, right?
Huh? Guilty spouse? What do you mean?
He looked bewildered as I calmly explained. It means you're the one who caused the grounds for divorce. You have no objections to that, correct? A guilty spouse can't file for divorce. You do understand that, right?
What? I didn't know that. So I can't file for divorce unless you do?
That's how it works. He seemed surprised, but then tried to regain his composure.
But you just said you'd step back.
Yes, I did. But there are conditions for divorce. You have to renounce your claim to the property division.
What?
I explained that I wanted all of our joint savings, household items, and the car to be mine.
What? That's a problem. I hardly have any savings.
If you don't waive your right to the property division, I won't agree to a divorce. Rachel here will have to raise a fatherless child.
No.
They were both visibly shaken. She then glared at me with determination. Are you a devil or something? We're about to have a child, and you won't divide the property? That's not my problem. Ready to be a single mother? As I spoke condescendingly, her eyes filled with tears, and she shook Lance's arm. It's okay, Lance. Let her have the savings. We can work hard together again. Let's get rid of this evil lady and be together.
Oh, Rachel.
They seemed about to enter their own world again, but I cut in matter-of-factly. Oh, and I will be filing for alimony for the affair, of course. $50,000 each, please.
What?
If you don't waive the property division, we will settle with that. The two of them looked at me, eyes wide. Did they really think they could do all this without having to pay alimony? Surprised? That's only fair, isn't it?
But $50,000 each, that's too much.
Alimony isn't included in the property division. Make sure you have it ready.
You're already making more money than me, and still you are so greedy for money.
See whatever you want. I'm definitely filing for alimony. Rachel then blurted out. Lance, this is too much. Let's hire a lawyer and fight this.
Yeah, you better be prepared, Madeline. I will be the one to demand alimony from for emotional distress, you fool.
I scoffed at their threats. Sure, bring a lawyer or whatever you want. Let's see if you can find one who will take your ridiculous side as a guilty spouse.
What did you say?
I will see it through to the end, whether it's a trial or whatever. Do you two even have the money for legal fees? Especially with a baby on the way. My concern made them both look down, trembling. What? Do you have something to say? She yelled at me, her face smeared with tears and snot. You're evil! This is exactly the reason why he left you for me. I raised my voice even louder. I'm telling you, I'm giving you that man. If you understand, then pay up and enjoy your miserable lives together, you scum! Leaving the two of them trembling in fear, I walked out of the cafe. Eventually, my divorce from Lance was finalized. We agreed on no property division and $50,000 in alimony. Lance and Rachel apparently begged their relatives for money, but after hearing about their situation, the relatives firmly refused, and he was even disowned by his family. In the end, they had to borrow money to pay me the alimony. They tried to stay together, but they were ostracized at work and eventually fired. With a baby on the way, they both ended up jobless and in debt. Seeing their plight, Rachel's parents said they would raise a child until they could pay off their debts. They were left unable to properly raise their own child for a man who loved children. This must have been excruciating. They now live in a rundown apartment, working day and night to pay off their debts. Bethany, who lives nearby, says their apartment is always filled with the sound of arguing. I feel no sympathy for them. Meanwhile, I moved to a new place with my alimony, and I'm living comfortably. My work is going well, and I'm set to be promoted earlier than my peers. Now I'm focused on my career and finding someone truly trustworthy.
Oh my, I'm feeling great. Give me the mic.
My tipsy mother-in-law snatched the microphone from my friend during her speech, and I unexpectedly started her own. My father-in-law Mark was drunkenly making a scene with relatives. And to top it off, Ingrid gave a speech that mockingly targeted me. What did I ever do to deserve this? Why do I have to endure all this? I almost burst into tears when my niece's comment dramatically changed the atmosphere of the room. My name is Naomi, a 48-year-old who's put on quite a bit of weight, tagging along with my food-loving husband Trevor. The infuriating part was that he shed weight effortlessly, with just a bit of exercise.
Jealous? Now I can eat even more.
It made me so mad. I thought about swapping his dinners with lard for a week. I love him, but right now, I hate his metabolism. Determined to slim down and make him fold for me all over again, I find myself still enjoying delicious meals. Oh well. I married Trevor, a year younger than me, 5 years ago. We hit it off quickly, moving from dating to marriage in no time. But then, the real challenge began. When we went to announce our marriage, my mother-in-law complained,
"Why marry someone older who can't even have kids?"
And my father-in-law let out a disappointed sigh.
Wished for a younger bride.
They were rude from the get-go. Trevor warned me his home was like a den of evil. His mom was always harsh on his girlfriend, driving away a past partner he could have married. His dad, a womanizer who had multiple affairs, showed no interest in his wife. Their marriage was rocky, to say the least. His dad's wish for a younger bride was probably to have some eye candy at home. Despite their strong opposition, Trevor suggested we marry without their approval. But I couldn't just do that. I visited his parents multiple times to get their blessing. I loved him and naturally wanted to get along with his family. We didn't want to marry with them opposed to it. Finally, they accepted our marriage, and we registered our union. One day, my mother-in-law Ingrid said something chilling.
"I was always bullied by my mother-in-law, so I decided I'd bully my son's wife."
Her casual demeanor as she said this sent shivers down my spine. It was never about the age difference. She just wanted someone to bully. No wonder Trevor's previous girlfriends were mistreated for no reason. I decided to keep a safe distance. But then, she interfered with our wedding planning, insisting on including her opinions. Why should they have a say? They're not even contributing financially, I thought. However, friends who were already married told me they also considered their in-laws' opinions. It seemed like a common practice to respect the spouse's parents to some extent. I mean, I get it, kinda. It's a big day for their beloved son. Trevor says I could ignore them, but I couldn't just do that. So reluctantly, I agreed to at least listen to them. But I soon regretted my decision. They complained our chosen venue was too expensive, pushing for a place run by a friend of my mother-in-law, a shabby place with bad reviews. Trevor firmly rejected it. But then, They started commenting on the bride's attire, demanding it be cheaper. Ingrid even said I could use her old wedding dress to save money, claiming it would be a waste to spend on something new. As if I'd wear something that's probably covered in cobwebs from sitting around for years. I knew she just didn't want the bride to be the center of attention, so I flat out refused. She kept making all sorts of suggestions, but I knew our wedding would be a disaster if I agreed to any of them. It was a parade of ridiculous proposals, so I ended up rejecting almost all of them. Looking back, maybe that ignited her mean streak even more. Right up until the last minute, she was like, "Have a destination wedding so we can travel." Or, "If you don't listen to me, I won't attend." Despite all that, Trevor and I somehow managed to get to our wedding day. Then, on the day of the wedding, Ingrid showed up in a funeral dress, not a formal black suit, but something that looked unmistakably like mourning attire. It felt like she was saying she didn't recognize our wedding. 2 weeks before, she'd said, "I'm not going to your wedding." So I told her, "Then please don't come." Maybe that rubbed her the wrong way. She didn't even show up in the dressing room. And suddenly she was sitting with our relatives. It was too late to ask her to leave without ruining the mood of the venue. But to anyone watching, it was clear that the bride and mother-in-law weren't getting along. My friends and relatives all looked troubled. As the wedding ceremony went on, the groom's relatives started acting up. They were completely drunk, heckling during the movie my husband's friend had made. Of course, we asked the staff to escort that relative out, but even my father-in-law was smashed, waving around a bottle of liquor brought by the relatives as if it were a flashlight. He even shouted,
"Hey, waiter! Another beer!"
as if we were in a bar. Some were escorted out, saying they felt sick. The staff did their best to keep the ceremony going, but my guests were all horrified by the chaos. Embarrassed, my husband and I spent most of the ceremony with our heads down. It was a nightmare. Then, during my friend's speech as a representative of my friends, the unexpected happened. My tipsy mother-in-law suddenly said,
"Oh my, I'm feeling great. Give me the mic,"
and snatched it from my friend.
"Now, let me, the groom's mother, say a few words."
Trevor and I were stunned. She was so natural in her movements that even the staff were confused, wondering if this was part of the program.
"So, about Naomi. I heard she's been a hard worker since she was little."
Surprisingly, her comments weren't bad. I didn't want to make a scene by cutting her off if she wasn't saying anything harmful. Maybe it was better to act as if this was planned all along. The staff and Trevor asked if we should stop her, but I decided to see how it went.
"She lost her father when she was young. Then her mother and her sister, who was 10 years older, raised her. That sister passed away recently from illness. Naomi is a remarkable woman who has experienced hardships unimaginable to my son."
Her speech wasn't bad for a while. She acknowledged my difficult life, including my parent passing, and how I managed to go to college with support from my family and sister. It was a heavy topic for a wedding, but all true. Just when I thought she might have a good side, about 30 minutes in, she said,
"But don't you think her parents and sister dying young is because she's a jinx? I was shocked to hear this when they came for the wedding greeting. Maybe she's just an attention seeker bragging about her hardships. She probably doesn't realize we are not interested in such stories."
Everyone, not just me, was dumbfounded by her laughter and words. The shock was amplified because everyone had been drawn into my past, only to be mocked by her sudden turnaround. All she did was expose and ridicule my painful past in front of everyone. During the wedding greeting, I had to talk about my family because I couldn't hide the fact that my parents weren't around. I never intended it to be a sob story. If it were possible, I'd still want to meet my living family members. Why would I ever boast about being unfortunate? I knew it would ruin my bridal makeup, but I couldn't help it. Tears started to fall. Then, in the dead silence of the hall, my niece Erica, a sophomore in high school, spoke up loudly. Ingrid, thinking her speech was well received, was smugly saying, "Glad you all enjoyed it." But then, Erica stood up and said, No, you've got it all wrong, old lady. You're here talking about Naomi's misfortunes. Well, what's your point? Look at this awkward atmosphere. Who are you calling old lady? I'm the mother of the groom. You're so disrespectful. Ingrid retorted, clearly outraged. Erica snorted. Who's the disrespectful one? You come to a wedding in funeral clothes and try to make a mockery of the bride. Well, nobody's laughing, so you're just embarrassing yourself. Not only are you disrespectful, but you can't even read the room. Aren't you ashamed? Even a young girl like me can see how embarrassing this situation is. Maybe with age, you'll regress a bit? She raised her hands and shrugged her shoulders as my mother-in-law's face turned beet red. Oh my gosh! Unbelievable! How dare you talk to me like that? Naomi, doesn't your niece know how to speak to her elders? She snapped, glaring at me. I have to say, my niece is right. Your speech wasn't even part of the program, and instead of bringing some cheer, you interrupted my friend's speech with your boring talk. It's just unpleasant.
Yo, Mom, I don't know if you were trying to pick on Naomi or what, but can't you see everyone's just appalled? Right now, you're not just picking on her. Like Erica said, you're just being a boring, senseless person.
Her face went from red to tomato red, as if it could get any redder. Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Uneffing believable! I'm your mother, Trevor. How dare you embarrass me like this in front of everyone? It just seems like you brought this embarrassment on yourself. Erica chimed in without missing a beat. While the groom's side of the family was too drunk to notice, my guests began to chuckle. You know what? I thought I'd respect my elder and stay quiet. But since you asked, old lady, Erica said, suddenly smiling innocently. Ingrid looked puzzled. That dress you're wearing still has a price tag on it. What? My mother-in-law gasped as the whole erupted in laughter. It seemed everyone had noticed the tag. No one from her side pointed out, probably because they were mostly men and not interested in her dress. No one had bothered to tell her. Wearing a funeral dress to a wedding with a tag still on? Are you getting ready for the next world? You are well prepared, as expected from an elder. But isn't that a bit premature? People like you tend to live long lives, Erica said, laughing gently. My mother-in-law finally seems to feel embarrassed and frantically tried to hide the tag. My father-in-law, seeing this, pointed at her and laughed.
Oh, you're ready to kick the bucket already. Ha ha ha.
My husband and I, and probably most of the guests, could see her anger, but he and everyone else on his side remained oblivious.
Well, I guess I will find a new wife then,
he joked, and a relative chimed in.
What about Nancy, the hostess? That's right, he agreed.
and then all got carried away, completely forgetting about Ingrid.
You too? This is unbelievable. Having fun at my expense in a place like this?
Just when I thought she was about to explode, she grabbed a beer bottle from a nearby table and marched towards her husband, bottle raised high, declaring,
I won't forgive you.
He turned pale at the sight. Everyone thought we were on the brink of a police-worthy disaster, when suddenly my niece Erica dashed over and drenched them both with the table's alcohol.
Cool off with this. Are you still planning to cause a scene at people's wedding? Staff, please escort these people out.
The crowd, initially stunned by the unfolding chaos, snapped back to reality at her command, and the staff quickly restrained them. When they asked if they should escort my in-laws out, both my husband and I smiled and said, Please do. Our wedding ended amidst this commotion, but later, my brother-in-law, who's been like a father to me since my sister passed away, joined us to confront my in-laws. He was especially furious about the wedding fiasco and determined to make them pay for the expenses. Initially, they tried to shrug it off, saying they were drunk or it wasn't right to settle it with money. However, when my brother-in-law, a former boxer and still muscular, grabbed Mark by the collar, he quickly agreed to pay. He must have been really scared, as he paid the full wedding cost in cash that very day. At the same time, my husband declared we were cutting ties with them. He apologized, saying he should have done this sooner, but I couldn't blame him. I was wrong to even momentarily hope for a pleasant speech from her. I want us to become a stronger couple by overcoming these hardships, I thought. Later, we heard that my father-in-law became wheelchair-bound, and my mother-in-law suffering from rheumatoid arthritis reached out for help. But my husband ignored her plea, saying, They're not my parents anymore. I recently passed by their old house, now demolished. Maybe they are in a facility, but I doubt they have the funds for both. Perhaps Ingrid is living somewhere like a park. I thought I saw someone like her there recently. But they are strangers to us now. Unlikely we'll ever meet again. As for us, we are living our lives peacefully. 2 years later, we used our refunded wedding money and our savings to have a wedding ceremony in an Italian chapel and a belated honeymoon. It was a redo of our wedding. We didn't invite anyone from my husband's side, but my friends and family came, making it a beautiful ceremony. Erica said she was glad our wedding didn't end on a sour note, and gave us an expensive gift and a caricature she drew of us, showcasing her art school skills. I felt bad accepting such a pricey gift, but she said, I see you more as my real sister, so please accept it. How sweet of her. When she gets married, I will repay her kindness 3 or 4-fold, maybe with some furniture. Wearing a wedding dress again at my age was a little embarrassing, but my husband said I looked even more beautiful than before. I had a bridal spa treatment, but I'm sure I haven't changed that much. He's just being kind. However, after the ceremony, we loosened up and indulged in his love for buffets, and at 48, I've gained weight quickly. My husband joked,
You've changed. How about going back to the old you?
I snapped back, Hush! You're thinning on top, you know? That's our way of teasing each other. We hope to be a couple that can always poke fun at each other, just like best friends. Since it was a late marriage, I want to lose weight to live long and healthy with my husband. Health is important after all. Now, off for a walk with my husband today. Welcome home, Trevor. You must be tired from your business trip. My husband Trevor, who had always acted like a tyrant at home, had just returned from a business trip. As soon as he saw me, he twisted his face in disgust.
Your face just darkens my mood. Seeing you is so depressing.
He then started eating the dinner I had prepared, lounging in the living room. I stood by him like a maid. After finishing his meal, he headed to the bath, flinging his suit at my face as I went to get his change of clothes.
Hey, maid! Take this to the cleaners.
Yes. I squatted to pick up the suit, feeling crushed by being called a maid. While checking the pocket before sending it for cleaning, my fingers brushed against a piece of paper. Unfolding it, my eyes widened in shock. At that moment, I realized everything. Ah, I see how it is. Well, if that's the case, I have my own plan. Soon, he would be begging me, his face pale with fear. My name is Brianna, a 31-year-old working from home as a web designer, married for 2 years. Trevor and I met at the matchmaking party 3 years ago. He is a sales rep at a small company and used to play rugby. His assertive approach initially seemed manly and reliable to me, who had a little experience in love. A year into dating, he proposed, and I accepted, dreaming of a happy family life.
I can't wait to start a happy family with you, Brianna.
Me neither, Trevor. I'm looking forward to our future.
Well, first off, you should quit your job.
What? I worked at a big web production company then. I was a lead there and felt fulfilled. I actually want to keep working even after we got married.
Of course, you have to quit your job. No way I'm going to support a wife who just slacks off at home.
I felt a bit irked by his comment, but I decided to let it go for now and asked, why do I have to quit?
If you keep working after we are married, it's like I'm not man enough to support you. It's embarrassing, so just quit your job, okay?
He had some rather old-fashioned views about men being men. I never expected him to go this far though. But...
Your job can be done from home, right? So just work from home. End of discussion.
In the end, I couldn't oppose him and reluctantly left my job. I decided to become a freelance web designer working from home. Honestly, I did miss my old job, but I couldn't stand up to Trevor. Later, he and I rented an apartment and started living together. However, soon after we got married, I was shocked to discover something. Trevor couldn't handle basically any work around the house. We hadn't lived together before getting married. I had been living alone, while he had always lived with his parents, even after starting his career. Maybe that's why he couldn't even do basic things like cooking or using the washing machine. Initially, I thought he would learn in time, but he showed no interest in doing so. He would just dump all the housework on me and spend his time as he pleased, often playing video games. My frustration with him kept growing. One day, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to talk to him. Hey Trevor, could you please start doing a bit more housework?
What did you say?
He sat up from the couch where he'd been lounging and scrolling through his phone, looking annoyed. I'm saying you need to help out more with the housework, Trevor.
Why?
He looked genuinely confused, so I replied in surprise. Because we live together. You need to share in the housework.
What are you talking about, Brianna? It's always been understood that housework is wife's job.
His casual dismissal confused me. Are you being serious? It's normal for both spouses to share housework. I'm working too, you know.
But you're just playing around on the computer at home. Calling that a job is an exaggeration. It doesn't matter whether you work outside or not. Housework is a wife's responsibility.
That's not right. His dependable and manly nature, which I admired, turned out to be just a facade of a domineering husband. No matter what I said, he wouldn't listen. So I ended up doing all the housework. Time passed, and about a year into our marriage, Trevor started coming home late and being away more often, saying he was busy at work. His attitude at home became increasingly arrogant. One night, when he didn't return home even past 11 p.m., I finished the housework and went to bed early. Then, late at night, he came home and woke me up.
Hey, Brianna, wake up.
What? What's going on, Trevor? I asked, rubbing my eyes, and he yelled at me.
How dare you sleep before your husband comes home? You are supposed to greet me with a smile when I return.
But I tried to contact you, but you didn't respond, and I have work tomorrow.
No excuses. When I come home, you should greet me with a smile, have dinner and a bath ready.
You are joking, right?
Of course not. Now get up. I'm hungry, so make me some late-night snacks.
I looked at the clock. It was past 2 a.m. At this hour? Give me a break.
Just make the snack. If you don't listen, we might as well get a divorce.
Shocked by his mention of divorce, I got up. Nervously, I made the snack as he instructed. He watched it with crossed arms until it was ready, then ate it with satisfaction.
After this, I'm going to take a bath, so get my towel and clothes ready.
Okay, got it. I felt like a maid. I kept trying to fulfill his demands, even though it was hard. Around that time, my freelance work became busier. Even though I was working from home, I finally had steady clients and was busy with deadlines. The stress of my demanding job, the need to be perfect in housework, and Trevor's tyrannical attitude were overwhelming. Before I knew it, I started suffering from chronic stomach pain. Trevor continued to be absent from home. When he did come home, he was usually drunk and treated me with disdain. There were no more outings or peaceful conversations as a couple. I even started thinking that it would be better if he didn't come home at all. I mean, all he would do at home is to act like a king. Then one day, I made a small mistake. I was feeling under the weather with a cold and forgot to buy a new pair of socks that Trevor had asked for.
Where are the new socks?
He asked irritably early in the morning. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to buy them. I've been feeling sick since yesterday.
How incompetent can you be? You're really useless.
He sighed and continued.
Go buy them now, and use your own money, of course.
But I've got a fever and a cold.
No excuses. This is why you're no good. Go buy them now.
Despite feeling dizzy, I was sent out in my pajamas to the supermarket. As I returned home with the socks, I cried. Why did I have to take all this? Doesn't he love me anymore? I couldn't stop my tears. Sometime later, Trevor said he was going on a business trip and left. I won't be yelled at by my husband tonight. I felt relieved, focused on my work, and settled for pizza for dinner. I finally had a relaxing evening. The next evening, he came home. Welcome home, Trevor. You must be tired from your business trip. I welcomed him saying so. But as soon as he saw me, he twisted his face in disgust.
Your face just darkens my mood. Seeing you is so depressing.
He then started eating the dinner I had prepared, lounging in the living room. I stood by him like a maid. After finishing his meal, he headed to the bath, flinging his suit at my face as I went to get his change of clothes.
Hey, maid! Take this to the cleaners.
Yes. I squatted to pick up the suit, feeling crushed by being called a maid. While checking the pockets before sending it for cleaning, my fingers brushed against a piece of paper. Unfolding it, my eyes widened in shock. It was a hotel receipt. It seems to be for a cottage, or something like that. Why would he stay in a cottage when he was supposedly on a business trip? With trembling hands, I took out my phone and searched. The search results showed a cottage in the next state. So that's what it was. He was acting all high and mighty at home, but he was cheating on me. Well, in that case, I have a plan too. I quietly put away the receipt. That day, I acted as usual in front of him. The next day, I started taking action. I decided to hire a detective agency to investigate Trevor. I had my own job and couldn't follow him around or do the investigating myself. Plus, I didn't want to slip up and let him catch on. Luckily, I found a detective agency with reasonable prices and female detectives. 2 weeks later, I had all the evidence of his infidelity, like it was nothing. Photos of him entering a motel with a young woman I didn't know, kissing in his car. I couldn't help but pump my fist in victory. By that time, I had no love left for him. I was just happy to have the evidence. The detective agency stopped smiling wryly at me, began to speak. "Ma'am, here's what we found from the investigation." I held my breath as she continued. The next day, after Trevor left for work, I packed my things. I called a moving truck and had them take my stuff to my parents' house. That night, as I relaxed at my parents' home, Trevor called. I ignored his calls, but he called repeatedly, what you would call bombarding me with calls. I just kept ignoring them. The next day, the calls continued, even in the daytime. Finally annoyed, I decided to answer. "Hello?"
Hey, where the hell are you? You left without saying a word.
I calmly replied to his barrage. "I'm at my parents' house."
What? I didn't give you permission to go back there. Your stuff is gone too. What are you planning?
Why should I serve someone who called me a maid? I couldn't stand it anymore, so I left.
Why are you making a big deal out of this? Come back now and do the housework.
He yelled furiously, and I sighed before responding. I'm not coming back to that house.
What did you say?
I will be waiting at the cafe near your office after work. We can talk there. Bye. I said that, hung up, and smirked. All right, let's do this. I muttered and sent an email to someone. A few hours later, as promised, I waited at the cafe. Trevor arrived furious.
What do you mean by not coming home?
He blurted out aggressively as he sat down. Like I said on the phone, I can't be your wife anymore.
What? Are you planning to divorce me?
Yes, that's my intention. As I calmly answered, he was about to yell back, turning red, when suddenly his phone rang. Aren't you going to answer? It might be important. He answered the call with a disgruntled expression, and his face turned pale. After the call, he looked down, covering his mouth wide-eyed. What's wrong? Did they fire you after all?
Come again?
I stared straight at him as he turned to me. You got fired Or demoted for messing with the daughter of a client CEO, huh? I hope they fired your ass. So this is what the detective agency had told me. That Trevor had been cheating with the daughter of a client, hiding the fact he was married. I had all the evidence.
Oh, what do you know about that? What's going on?
Well, I'm the one who reported it to your company.
What?
He was shocked, and I smiled while he stammered.
Do you realize what you have done?
Yes, I'm well aware. I also reported the details to the CEO. He was furious and wanted to see the evidence, so I gave him the photos.
You did what?
His phone rang again. When I urged him to answer, he did so tremblingly. From the phone, I could hear a young woman crying and yelling. It seemed like the CEO's daughter, his mistress, was losing it on the phone. Trevor, unable to say a word, hung up with a pale face. Poor thing, the other woman. She was just deceived by you.
When? When did you find out?
He asked, his voice quivering, and I answered calmly. Remember when you called me a maid and threw your suit at my face? There was a receipt for the cottage in that suit pocket. That's why I hired a detective. He was gaping in shock.
No, it's not like that. It was just a fling. I never planned to divorce you.
Oh, after all that arrogant behavior? I will never forgive you. As I glared at him, he suddenly started pleading.
I don't want to get fired. She said she will sue me for compensation. I won't be able to survive. Please, help me. Forgive me, Brianna.
At that moment, I splashed the water from my cup onto him.
What the hell?
This is nothing compared to what I've had to go through. I'm divorcing you, and I will be demanding $35,000 in compensation for your affair. Make sure you pay up, you jerk. Go to hell. He turned ashen and panicked. He was muttering,
I don't want a divorce. Please help me.
I looked at his pathetic state and regretted ever marrying such a man. Shaking off the clinging Trevor, I left the cafe alone. Later, my divorce from him was finalized. With the help of a lawyer, I received $35,000 in compensation for his infidelity right away. I got half of our assets in the settlement. The CEO, the father of his mistress, was furious and ended business with his company. Trevor really got fired from his job. He was also sued by his mistress and forced to pay her compensation. Because of all this, Trevor ended up living in a rundown apartment, buried in debt, and working like a host day and night. I felt no sympathy for him. He got what he deserved. As for me, I used the alimony to move into our new apartment and live comfortably. My career is thriving, and I'm earning more now than when I was single. It's more than enough to live on my own. From now on, I want to take care of myself and carve out a bright future.